Hello everybody and welcome to another Doctor Who review. This time I'm reviewing a second Doctor story. It's the Dominators. As always for the classic series reviews, I have with me the television companion. Let's see what the plot synopsis says for the story. The TARDIS materialises on the planet Dolkis, currently under threat from two alien Dominators, Rago and his subordinate Toba, who have landed in a spaceship. Aided by the robotic servants, the Quarks, and slave workers drawn from the native Dulcian population, the Dominators set about drilling boreholes, through which they plan to fire rockets into the planet's molten core. Their intention is then to drop an atomic sea capsule into the resulting eruption, turning Dolkis into a radioactive mess, fuel for the Dominator space fleet. The Dulcian councillors, being pacifists, refuse to retaliate, although Cully, the rebellious son of their leader Senix, has already joined forces with the Time Travellers. The Doctor eventually defeats the Dominators by intercepting the sea capsule as it's dropped and placing it on board their ship, which is then destroyed shortly after takeoff. Dolkis suffers only a minor volcanic eruption as a result of the rockets fired into its magma. There we are, there's the plot synopsis for The Dominators, written by Norman Ashby, starring the second Doctor Patrick Troughton, Jamie played by Fraser Hines, and Wendy Pabbery's Zoe. This is a pseudonym, Norman Ashby, for Mervyn Haseman and Henry Lincoln, who wrote The Web of Fear and also The Abominable Snowman the previous season. But there's a few disputes over this one, so Derek Sherman had a heavy hand in the last episode, episode 5, so that's why it's a pseudonym name and not the actual two writers credited on this one more than anything else. There is other elements to it, but I'm not going to go too much into depth in this story. Story about it, apart from maybe the reasons why the plot is a little bit iffy at times, and that's one criticism I do have of the story, but we'll get to that in a minute. So we'll go through the main cast to start with, and some of the main guest stars, and just talk about the cast. Then we'll go into some of the production bits and pieces, and of course you'll get my rating as always. So Patrick Troughton, we start off with the second Doctor. Troughton knows the role by this point, he's comfortable in the role. You get the mix of the very scheming and intelligence of the second Doctor, you get the stupidity and the comedy of the second Doctor, particularly in the bits where they're being tested by Dominator Rago in episodes 2 and 3. That's actually quite good. I love the way that there's a kind of mix between all the different versions of the Doctor that we get with the second Doctor, and it really is quite fun and interesting to see, and I quite like the way it's been worked and recorded here with Troughton's performance. I think it's really a nice blend. It makes you feel like the Doctor is in charge. He isn't really, he is a little bit stuck with events. He's been rolled along a little bit, but his investigation and his querying and his intelligence comes through aplomb here, and his relationship with his main companions is brilliant. His relationship with Jamie is just chef's kiss. Them two, Fraser Hines and Patrick Troughton, really got on well. You can see that on their on-screen friendship and obviously the relationship and the rapport they have. And Wendy Pabbery's a nice little addition to that, the way that there's elements that come into that later on, the way the Doctor works with Zoe, which is really nice. However, yeah, we've got then Jamie, played by Fraser Hines. I've just basically said the relationship between him and Patrick Troughton is just formidable. It's one of the best companion Doctor teams that you see in the classic series as far as I'm concerned. There's only really one, I think, that works better for me, and that's at the other end of the classic series. But yeah, I think the friendship and the companionship between the two of them is really lovely. They do bounce off each other. Jamie is really the heavy. He's the strong man. He's the action man of the piece, and the Doctor's the thinking part. But Fraser Hines, I love the fact that they've now got the situation where Jamie's very loyal and does seem to have learned from the Doctor's travels and doesn't seem to take much of the weird surroundings he finds himself in every adventure badly. He takes it to heart and just travels along. I think there's a trust there with the Doctor that makes it work for Jamie in that respect. And then you've got Wendy Pabbery Zoe, who a very good start to the role. I mean, obviously she's established in Wheel and Space, but there's still a very strong characterization there of Zoe in this story. It's really nice to see, and I quite like the way that it's put across. The way Zoe's intelligence comes across, it's not forceful, it's not cheeky, it isn't overpowering or overbearing as it can be in some of the Sixth Doctor the 6th-season stories, Zoe's character can be a bit arrogant at times. This one, it's not bad. It's just more of an inquiring mind and quite inquisitive. But obviously there's intelligence there because obviously Zoe kind of figures out what the Doctor's trying to say with the Earth's core and what's happening with the explosion and everything later on. When the Doctor figures out finally in episode 5 what exactly the Dominators are doing, which is interesting. It's an intriguing dynamic between her and Jamie and the Doctor, and it really does work, and Wendy Pamley plays it very well as well. We've then got the guest cast. We have Rargo, played by Ronald Allen, and Toba, played by Kenneth Ives. Now, this dynamic, oh my god, what a brilliant dynamic. The only thing that kind of spoils it for me, it's quite obvious Kenneth Ives is a bit older than this probationer young man role that they've got him in. Ronald Allen works brilliantly as the evil, manipulative, older and more mature dominator of Rargo. He's not chewing the scenery, but he really shows evil here, and it really works. And I love the nuanced way that, you know, he knows battle. Rargo knows battle, and Ronald Allen plays it very well for that. You've then got Toba, played by Kenneth Ives. Toba is impulsive, young, has a bloodlust, and that it's played well by Kenneth Ives, but there's a slight lack of believability because he doesn't look young. They try and make him look young with the makeup, but it doesn't quite work. You can tell he's a slightly older man than what they've got. But it's a good performance, don't get me wrong. I do like the impulsiveness, and Kenneth Ives does seem to have that kind of childlike teenage quality to him. And the bouncing off between the two of them, it's one of the best things of the story, them two bouncing off each other. Toba always trying to break the conventions and show his impulsiveness, and Rargo having to keep reining him in all the time. Number of times Rargo tells him off and Toba doesn't listen. That's what makes the story enjoyable for me, is that element of it. It's really good. We then have other guest cast members. I'm not going to go through them all because some of them are kind of meh. Some of them are, ineffectual and don't really work. The best guest cast after the two Dominators is Arthur Cox's Cully. Again, you get the impression he's supposed to be playing somebody a little bit younger, not somebody who looks like he's in his late 30s, early 40s, which is probably what Arthur Cox was. Again, I think there's a kind of miscasting there. It would have been better if they'd had a younger person come in and play Cully a bit more, because I think it would have worked with the impulsiveness and the rebelliousness that Cully has. I suppose Walter Fitzgerald Seddix is old enough to make Cully out to be younger, young son, and maybe he is a bit more of an immature 30-something, but it doesn't... the casting here with the age, you really want somebody a little bit younger, a bit close to the age that Jamie is, the age that Fraser Hines is playing. I do like the way that the role was played by Arthur Cox, and I do like the character overall, this rebellious, not so pacifistic Dulcian. You've then got the other key Dulcians that we see on the planet. You've got Kendo, played by Felicity Gibson, who's basically eye candy. There's not much to the role. It's quite thin on the ground. She's there as exposition. She's not there for much else. And then you've got Teal, played by Giles Block, who... Again, he's kind of young, inexperienced, naive, and they're both naive, Kendo and Teal. But Teal seems to be the more naive of the two of them. Seems to be the one with a bit more of the I'm not quite sure about this. No, we can do this. Oh, can we not? I don't know. I'm not sure. How can we do? A bit more questioning. Are they really needed? Not really. They kind of drag the plot a little bit, but do you know what? They're okay. In regards to the writing. Is plodding. I get the impression it was got to be a 6-parter, but it didn't work, even as a 5. I think the best part of the adventure is in episodes 1 and 5. The other 3 are really filler. They really are filler. They don't really develop much of the plot. The only good thing they do is develop the relationship between Rargo and Toba. That's it. Nothing else seems to have worked for those 60-odd minutes of episodes 2 to 4. The writing's quite weak. I think it really would have worked better if it was condensed down to 4. I think it would still be weak in its writing, but I think it would work better overall. Budgetary, I think it's a struggle for the story. I think that probably doesn't help. And you need a strong cast for that. And you don't really get too much of a strong cast out of the 3 leads and Cully and the Dominators. The other characters don't really help support that much. So... the whole ensemble doesn't really carry it through the way it should do. There always seems to be something missing in the rapport and the dynamics and the chemistry between some of the characters, and it kind of drags it down a little bit for that. I don't think there's anything wrong with the direction from Maurice Barry. He's obviously got a piece where he's got limited sets, limited ideas, limited costs, and he does what he can with it. And I think he relies on the cast too much to try and flesh it out. Some of them just don't come up to the task. I think that's really sad. I do like the idea of the Quarks. I think the Quarks are an interesting idea. I don't think the sound effects for their voices work. They're trying to be another Daleks, and it's not working. These things are trying to get another monster that looks like the Daleks and works like the Daleks. Interesting concept, but they're kind of clunky. They're basically just walking robots. In fact, it was children in the costumes, and they don't seem to work for me. It's the same with the Crotons later in the season. It's just trying to be this new monster, and they don't really work. Unlike the Crotons, though, it's a full bodysuit. It's not like skirts at the bottom like the Crotons are. But ultimately, it's not. The design is okay. I mean, the head's quite nice, but the bodywork and everything else, and the way they lumber about, and the way they're quite subservient to the Dominators, doesn't work for me. And an interesting concept, but what are they for? They're just servant robots with quite a bit of power in them. That's all they are. And they have a charge on them, and the battery runs low quite a lot. So it's not ideal. They're not the best designed monsters. They're not the best designed characters, and you can take them or leave them. They're an interesting part of the story, but they're not really part of the high Doctor Who canon of monsters. They are probably one of the more forgettable ones of the monsters of the Doctor Who of the classic series. Overall, it's a weak story. It's definitely a take your brain out, and this definitely you could take your brain out with for 3 episodes between 2 and 4 and still know what the hell's going on with the plot in episode 5. It really, 2 parts in it probably would work. 5, it's stretching it a bit too far. Unlike the Mind Robber, where they had a very interesting first episode filler to cover the gap and the extra episode they've managed to pick up from this story, the Dominators, it could have been done with 4. They could have extended out, and they could have created another story off this. And reduce maybe the Mind Robber as well by another episode. But yeah, there's better. It's not the strongest start to season 6 of Doctor Who. I do have a soft spot for it though, to be honest, because it is the second ever VHS I got as a Doctor Who fan back in 1997. That's how long ago it was. Wow. So I do have a soft spot for it, but on a critical basis and an overall for the series and the stories, I would have to give it a rating of 3 TARDISes out of 5. Okay, let's see how that story stacks up with the rest of the Patrick Troughton era, and also the rest of the TV stories I've reviewed so far. The Dominators sits in with the Crotons with 3 TARDISes out of 5. The most highly rated Doctor Who story of the Second Doctor era is The Tomb of the Cybermen with 4.5 TARDISes out of 5. Overall, there's still 2 stories with 2.5 TARDISes out of 5. They are Time Lash and Sleep No More. Along with The Tomb of the Cybermen at 4.5 TARDISes out of 5, we have 6 other stories. They are The Happiness Patrol, Inferno, The Day of the Doctor, The Caves of Androzani, Dalek, and The End of Time. Okay, that's my review of the Dominators. Let me know what you think of the Dominators. Leave a comment down below. Do you like it? Leave a comment down below. Are you not so fussed about it? Leave a comment down below. If you like this video, please like it, share it with the hashtag teamstructor. And if you like the channel as a whole, please hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell so you know when a new video comes out. I've now reached 500 subscribers. Thank you very much, everybody. And let's get some more. Let's build up the numbers and help spread the word of the channel overall. I am back next week with a vlog to Castle Campbell, and then 2 weeks' time, it's a Big Finish review of The One Doctor. Hopefully you can join me for that. But until next time, guys, thanks so much for watching, and you know what? I'll see you later.